Hi, What the HealthTech listeners. I'm your host this week, Rebecca Linley, Senior Communications Executive at Radar Healthcare. This is the podcast where we tackle some of the trending topics, best practice and ideas in health and social care. Joining me today is Rhian Bulmer, our Chief Partnerships Officer, to discuss the success of 2024 and how we're continuing to enhance collaboration and customer support in 2025. Welcome back to the podcast, Rhian.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again, Becca.
Okay, so let's just jump straight into it then. So 2024 has been such a successful year for Radar Healthcare. Can you share some of the highlights and key milestones that stand out?
I don't really know where to start because so much has happened in the last 18 months, but specifically this last year in terms of the kinds of customers who've joined Radar Healthcare, the kinds of work that we're doing, the kinds of rollouts we're doing. So there's so much to look at, and our breadth of customers now goes from independent private providers of clinical practices to small care home groups to ambulance companies, right through to some of the largest trusts in the country. One of our newest customers is London Ambulance Service. We've got Guy's and St Thomas Merseycare. We've got the biggest care groups in the country, the biggest private hospitals in the country, and then whole healthcare economies internationally. So I think it's been phenomenal really for Radar Healthcare to have that scale and breadth of growth across the whole of not just the UK and all the different sectors within the UK, but internationally too, to give us that absolute baseline to start to pivot and do some really cool things.
Yeah, and obviously as we grow, we've brought in quite a few new initiatives to connect with these customers. So obviously the new user groups, the new monthly webinar, we have a new customer magazine coming soon. So can you tell us a little bit more about the impact and what kind of led to those new initiatives?
Well, when you look at our kind of diverse range of customers, every customer needs something slightly different. So their use cases for Radar will be different, their applications will be different, their projects will be different, the way they want to interact with us will be different. So we've tried to, as we looked across the estate, we made two decisions. One is we looked at everything that united people and united our customers, and that's things like a monthly webinar about the roadmap, a customer newsletter with general information, meet the team, all that kind of things. So we looked wherever possible to make it repeatable if it was something that united customers. But where we need something that's bespoke and configurable or nuanced to a specific market or customer type, we've tried to put programs of activities in place that allow customers to still get together and learn from each other, but where we're able to really be respectful of that nuance. So one of the biggest things we've done around that is started to have different user groups for different customer sets. So the NHS user group was started by our NHS customers a few years ago, and we've kind of merged with them and grown with them and created this forum where we meet regularly. We've got our Christmas lunch coming up this week. Can I say that? Is it the wrong time of year for a broadcast? But we've got a kind of lunch coming up this week. We've got monthly meetings, different workshops that happen all around things that are specific to the NHS users. So we decided at the beginning of this year to then replicate that for other user types. So we've got care user groups, we meet, we have regular monthly meetings, face-to-face meetings. We have a hospice user group now, an ambulance user group. We're going to look throughout 2025 to start to diversify that more and keep that principle. If it's something that unites customers, we'll do it en masse, or if it requires nuance, then we do something specific for that market. And our biggest aim next year is to get all these different user groups together and get all of our customers from across the globe in the room together, seeing the amazing work that they do with each other.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we had a podcast recently with a healthcare professional, Lauren, who talked around like this, that each sector can learn from each other. And I think that just hits the nail on the head there, doesn't it? That kind of like collaboration, cross-working, that kind of thing too. And I guess then my next question around the user groups is, what's the feedback been like? Obviously, you said the NHS one started kind of customer facing. What's the others?
So actually on that point, and I'm sorry if you're listening, independent sector users, but we have an independent sector user group too. And that came to mind because the feedback that we get that someone from that group specifically fed back is it's a really USP of Radar, because not only are they able to leverage kind of best practice from us on how to use the system and build the system, but actually sit and work together on different initiatives, and they work together on different kinds of dashboards they might want to see that is the same for all independent sector users, different kinds of toolkits, and pull all that together. So I think that's probably the best bit of feedback we get, the ability to work together and learn from each other and reach out to each other, because it's not just about Radar Healthcare. You get this whole kind of wider extended group of your peers to be able to link into. And then in terms of how they interact with us as an organisation, we almost kind of unionise it a bit, so they're separate from us in terms of we support, we'll come along. We kind of offer the administration around it, but it's a group that actually lobbies us and tells us what's needed and tells us what's going to be needed in the market, what they need from the product, all of those things. So it gives that real kind of two-way dynamic in terms of communication.
Yeah, and like driving the product improvements, and just it's another forum then, isn't it, for them to feed into?
Yeah, absolutely. And we have things like we've traditionally got our online community where for users will know that you can go and you can put product requests on, you can upvote them. All of those things still stand, but nothing will ever replace the power of people coming together. No tech, no health tech, nothing can do that. So actually having all these people that come together is pretty phenomenal. And we had at our care user group a few weeks ago, we had Professor Martin Green, OBE, who attended the care user group to kind of chat to all of our users. And he came off the call and he was absolutely blown away. And he was saying, you know, all these really, really busy people giving hours of their time to come and share with each other shows that we've got something quite powerful. So that probably, to answer question number one in a really roundabout way, is the best thing that we've done this year.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, isn't it, around the Professor Martin Green joining us, because that's a real benefit of being in these user groups as well, because you get those kind of like little benefits.
Yeah, and subject matter experts as well.
Yeah. And for 2025, are we expecting a few more interesting guests joining the different user groups too, or is that on the cards?
Yeah, absolutely. So we try and keep the user groups led. Each user group's got a nominated partnership manager that works with them, and we try and keep it as organic as it can be in terms of what the users of that group want specifically. But then around that, we'll bring different people in. We have different levels of workshops. We've got kind of different subgroups happening of work streams that need specific focus. But when we talk about kind of getting everyone together over the year, we'll bring some real guest speakers that kind of everybody, again, it's something that unites all our customers. And we want to start to look at how through Radar Healthcare, we can join up healthcare across the system, not just siloed organisations, because we're in this luxurious position where we've got a footprint in every single market and we've got use cases for every single market, and our technology can join all that up. So it's a really exciting kind of future for us all.
Yeah, great place to be. So you touched on the community a little bit in the last question, but I was just going to ask a question around the academy and the community. And obviously this year in particular, they've grown quite valuable resources, excuse me, for our customers. How do they kind of feed into the strategy for 2025, and how do you see those kind of growing as another almost like branch within this ecosystem of support that we have?
It will absolutely always continue to grow, because I love the community. It's a useful resource for me. You get the kind of all the hints and tips on there, all the use case examples. We've started to have subgroups existing within there. So we've got our NHS user group, for example, exists within the community and has an area that they can sit and chat and have that kind of forum. So I see that continuing to grow. But in terms of the strategy, I think it's starting to bring more voices in outside of Radar into that group. And by outside Radar, I mean the core team. I mean more customer voices, customer expertise, customer articles, alongside articles from other kind of subject matter experts that are outside of Radar completely, because all of that happens organically in Radar, and it's about putting all that into one place where everyone can benefit from it.
Yeah, and just on that, I guess if there is any customers listening, how would they get involved in, say, the community or a user group or anything like that? Just
need to get in touch with your partnership manager or write into us, write to this email address, HealthTech@radarhealthcare.com, and we can link you in with the right people. Sometimes we get these scenarios where customers might want to be a member of two user groups, because you might be an NHS provider, but you might also kind of have a expertise in care. It might go across, so we would recommend where we think you might get the best value and do the introductions and get you involved in the user group that way. Also, if there's articles that you want to see that aren't there yet, get in touch and let us know. If there's articles you think you could write or you'd like to provide the content for, then we can kind of write them around that. And any which way, get in touch, because what we want to do is to keep the core values of Radar, the core interactions and partnerships we have with our customers, but make sure that everybody can benefit from that. Internationally too, you know, lots of people look to the UK to see best practice, to see things that are at the vanguard. And so actually to be able to let our international customers look at that as well is really important.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really good point, isn't it? That all these things are really like impact led. We want results from these and for customers to really get the benefit out of them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if we're not, then we'll look and we'll do something different, because we're still agile enough to be able to change. So it's not about kind of having this really strict corporate structure. It's just about making sure that we grow with our customers in a way that's best for them.
Yeah. And then I was just going to ask a question. So we attended quite a few key influential events this year and awards. And as obviously the Chief Partnership Officer at Radar Healthcare, why do you think it's so important to kind of be at these events and be at the forefront of celebrating and recognising the industry?
There's loads of different ways I could answer that. I'd start with saying why it's so important to be at the events, and because you've just got this power of all these people that are bothered about the same thing in the same environment, working together and coming up with ideas and solutions and chatting and networking, and the power of that you just can't beat. Again, it's that power of bringing people together. So when we look at some of the events we've been at this year, the biggest value from that has been about interacting with our own customers, with prospects, but with wider people in the market to see what's happening, what needs to happen. So it's so important to be part of those and so important to keep doing that throughout the year. When it comes to the awards ceremony type things, it's so important to celebrate. It's such hard work that everybody does, and we're honoured at Radar to see all this work happening every single day. We're seeing people moving the dial to be able to make things better for patients and service users and citizens. So to be able to celebrate that is phenomenal. And we kind of made a decision last year with Justine to look at putting more budget to supporting customers and their own, where they have their own kind of star awards or events like that, because that really is where we want to be. We want to be celebrating the frontline work, not everything that that a system does. The system's there to support the frontline. We're just a tool.
Yeah, and yeah, like you just said, that all the events that we kind of attend as well, there's just such like a warmth of like passion and in the room. Everyone's just so excited and wanting to make a difference, and it's just really inspiring to be part of that as well, isn't it?
It is. It's massive, and if you get that group of people, I can't remember who was saying this the other week, but if you get a group of people that are bothered, you can't really. Everything can change from that. That's all you need often, because the tools exist, the ideas often exist, but it's about bringing the people together that can make that happen.
Yeah. And I guess just based on the ones that you've attended this year and the ones that we plan on attending next year, are there any recommendations that you would give to people within the industry on which ones to attend or which awards evenings, etc.?
Definitely Patient Safety Congress. That's my favourite healthcare event, just because there's so much.
It's very well organised, I think, isn't it, as well?
It's really well organised, and there's so much depth of what goes on. I mean, Paul and I did about 4 or 5 different round tables in one day that were all happening, all these really lively debates, this real drive to change things and make things better. And I think they've almost changed their event from that very traditional, there's a speaker on a stage approach, to much more networking, interactive, linking in with people. So that's probably always my favourite one every year. It's got that back to school feeling. It's always September, and it's kind of everyone's
ready to get.
Yeah. The care show's great. Health Plus Care. What's that called? No, it's not Health Plus Care. anymore?
I'm not sure. The digital healthcare show or something like that.
Digital healthcare, yeah. There's so many of them that I think it's so important to think about where you're going to see suppliers that you want to learn from, but where you're going to be able to really, truly network and truly get all these people together, because that's the ultimate benefit.
I guess when you are attending these events and stuff, there are a lot of suppliers in the room. How do you kind of distinguish between the ones that are really going to make an impact? Because obviously everyone's selling a product, aren't they? Everyone is saying to you they have the best. So what kind of top tips would you give to people to really understand whether or not they should kind of go into a partnership with them?
I can tell you my own game I play.
Okay.
So as I go around conferences and look at the stands, I like to read the banners to see what it is they actually do. And if I can tell what they do from all the banners and all the blurb, I think, oh, that's interesting. Often I can't. And I think that's probably the first tip.
Yeah.
Try and understand exactly what that niche of that supplier is, because I think one of the things I've seen throughout my career is about having suppliers that have got a niche usually makes them pretty expert at what they're doing and pretty capable and competent, and understanding that niche I think is probably a first part. And then the other bit would be to your earlier point about understanding the impact. And if a supplier can explain the impact their product or service has had, and they can do that really succinctly and really quickly, you've got to investigate that more, because that probably is going to be game changing. And that would be that. There would be my top three kind of things.
Yeah.
But understanding the impact probably most importantly.
Yeah.
And also the freebies. You've got kind of
obviously, a good water bottle. Who doesn't want a good water bottle? And I'm just going to plug here a podcast that you recently did with The Caring View with Mark Tops and Adam Pennell, because you kind of go into a little bit more on that too as well. It's a really useful resource to go to if anyone's listening. So next question then. Obviously, recently we have received a significant amount of investment. Can you tell us a little bit more about how this will enhance our approach to customer support and collaboration with obviously moving forward and entering into 2025?
It's going to be seismic for Radar, because often, we're just at the beginning of the journey, and I think getting big investment shows that, because there's just so much to do, so many places to go. So we've been really clear that whilst we're at the beginning of kind of all this stuff we can do, it's really, really important that our key focus is health and social care and becoming category leader across health and social care, and starting to be able to tie that together and use some of the work that we do in other territories. So, for example, in the Emirates, in the Middle East, we do a lot of work that's system-wide, because it's easier in some more hierarchical territories to be able to prove the concept of having a system cross-system and linking in other systems together. So to be able to bring that work back over here and apply that to the UK, to healthcare economies, ICS, whatever that might be, and to our big complex organisations is going to be a real drive for us moving forward. And then continuing to grow out this fledgling group of users we've got, of people that absolutely know what they need from the system. So just exposing their voice to make sure that it's a partnered strategy, and we're jointly making decisions on our growth with our partners to make sure that whatever we're doing is going to be right for them, and that's at the core of it, and that's the core of the investment and of our strategy moving forward. Yeah,
and I think that's a really good point, isn't it? Because we've gone full circle then, because you use to connect with our partners, then we'll be pulling on these like levers that we've got, like the user groups, like the community, all those bits and bats to kind of really drive that partnership moving forward and really shape the product and company to what's really needed within the industry.
Yeah, and I've been talking to some of our partners recently about getting advisory panels, advisory papers written and everyone's so willing to help. We're eternally grateful for that. But actually to get these people who know what's best for their industry and their market in the room, and get their thoughts, their drive, their innovation, and for us to go off and bring that to life. I see that challenge being something, and that challenge being something that just exists throughout the coming years, whereby, we're almost given a challenge. Can you make this for us? Can you build this? Can you do that? We're a supplier and they're the customer, and that relationship will do in true partnership.
Yeah. And you have kind of touched on this a little bit, but I guess as we prepare for 2025, is there any insights that you can give us around exciting developments happening or anything like that?
So from product, watch the roadmap, watch the all the things that we've been talking about in terms of the new framework, our new tech stack, really being able to leverage everything that will come with the product roadmap and the cool things that sit in that, specifically AI, and I'll come back to that point in a moment. In terms of the adoption of Radar, we've probably spent certainly the last year with our huge customers getting to the point where we're getting these data views and this rich data and this presentation of organisation-wide data. And so the next step for that will be to replicate that across all of our customers, to take that across wider estates, but also to start to draw out AI. So, Paul always says this, the idea is that you can go in and log into a Radar in the morning and it kind of be your AI assistant that just goes, by the way, I think these are the things you want to look at today and this is where you need to be. And that, when you think about that technology's there, we're using it every day now in Google searches. It's not flawless, but it's there and it's ready to use. It's about making sure that we've got all of our customers to a point in their journey where all those foundations are there to use that technology. And so that definitely is it's not particularly a wow moment, but we're so close to that happening that will be something we'll definitely see over the next year. And then in terms of our customers and user groups, it's just about joining up those voices. And, our aim is that there are advocates there who speak for us. It's at the forefront of everything will be our customers and our partners.
Yeah, and then I guess on that as well, in terms of the investment, it obviously growth in terms of customers and things like that, but growth internally too. And I think that'll massively help with customer support, collaboration, all that kind of thing, connecting those dots. Would you be able to touch on a little bit around, obviously the partnerships team has had a bit of a restructure recently. We've got someone new in that's going to kind of head up that area too.
So we looked, as we're growing and the kind of scale, complexity, diversity of our customer base has changed, we need to make sure that we scale accordingly to adapt to that. So we did something earlier this year where we slightly restructured and the customer success managers became partnership managers who were responsible for your customer success still, but more about that partnering approach and making sure that we're facilitating user groups and events and workshops and actually part of your local community, whether that's a kind of territory or just as a market. So that's where the partnership managers will sit moving forward. And then within our project delivery approach, we decided that we needed to kind of siphon off a team and create a team of product consultants. And these are people who know Radar inside out and can build and design solutions for you. So quite often, going back to the point I was making about getting this tension of customers giving us challenges to go and build. Actually, our product consultants are perfectly placed to do that and go, this is our recommendation and these are the pros and cons of those different elements. So Rob Place headed up that team earlier this year. It's primarily made up of internal people that are being trained up and skilled up across all domains of Radar. And we're recruiting into that team quite heavily to support that and bolster that. And the feedback that's coming already, it's just phenomenal. I mean, you must have seen some of it, but every kind of person that team goes out to and works with come back and goes, wow, that's exactly what we need, someone that understands our nuance. So again, going back to that point of diversity versus if it's replicable, we'll replicate it. If it's nuance, we've got people that can deal with that.
Yeah, it's a fab team as well though, isn't it? I mean, all the partnership teams are just lovely people as well. And I think they're very driven and really embody the values of Radar Healthcare. And I think that's why we have a lot of success with partnerships, because everyone within the business is really committed to it.
Absolutely, that every single person lives and breathes and is an advocate for customers. And that kind of brings us on to the next point. So we've got, you said about a new hire, we've got Robert starting in the new year. And Robert's going to be head of professional services. He's got mega experience of scaling organisations from where we are to where we want to be in terms of project management, programme boards, delivery models, support, all of those things. He's absolutely teeming with ideas and he's raring to get going, to the point where even before he started, he popped along to one of the meetings to say hello and meet all the team. And his biggest bit of feedback was just like, I've never come across a team of people who are so bothered and who are so customer centric. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, we've loads we've got to do. We're not perfect. We'll continue to work with our customers, but the intent is entirely driven by what's right for the customer.
Yeah, I mean, it's very exciting, isn't it? It's a very exciting time. And then I guess my final question then, obviously collaboration has been such a central theme of this conversation, and you have touched on this, but why do you think it's so critical to our success within the healthcare industry?
I always say this, but technology's existed most of my career. There's been quite cool tech out there in health tech. There's good things that you can do. The technologists are there, the light years ahead really in a lot of respects. It's about bringing that technology to life, and that's the bit where you've got to put the most effort, the most time, the most thought, right down to, having how we roll out projects, what the endpoint's going to be, how we get people to be able to leverage AI. So the collaboration is the most important part in all tech, because someone arrogantly thinking they've had the best idea ever, passing it on to them and saying, here you go, if you go, this is going to change your life. Yeah. And then it just not being fit for purpose because that collaborative piece hasn't happened. So it's got to be about people working together, and the technology is just a tool. It will always just be a tool.
And at the end of the day, they are the expert matter.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the... I read something about, I've got on my phone a new AI assistant thing, which I love, by the way. And I was reading someone talking about it, saying, actually, you shouldn't be scared of AI. It's this cool assistant that's with you all the time. But you have to treat it like that. It's just a resource and a tool that you have to work with. You have to help learn your way of thinking. You have to know it's not always going to give out perfect results, and it's not just something where you can plug it in and suddenly it changes your life. So I think that's why the collaboration is so important.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that, actually. I went to a speaker session recently, and they were talking about AI and how they view it as like an intern, basically, and you have to train them up, and you're giving them tasks, feeding them information, and then eventually they will really like pick up on things. And once you've got it to that stage of I don't know, like a full-time employee, I guess, then it's like working in partnership almost with the tech as well then.
Yeah, and it's just a tool. I'm not saying people are tools, by the way, but it's just something there to help and support, but it doesn't just happen. It is a partnership even with your AI. It's a peculiar line to take. But.
Yeah, we've gone off on a bit of a tangent there. So just to wrap up then, as you know, at the end of each episode, we ask our guests to share what the health tech moment, and this is basically just a bit of fun, a standout moment from your experience within health and social care that has impacted you some way.
So it kind of ties into what I'm saying, and forgive me if I've told this story before because it's one of my favourites, but I remember sitting in a conference about tech with loads of people from hospitals, sat frontline users really, and they had drones, they had all this latest tech and gadgets, and there was like drones flying around, and this was going to revolutionise this, and everyone was all the presenters were super excited about the tech. And I always remember these ladies sat there, and I won't say it directly because there's some expletives, but like, I could just my log on, that would help me. I just want to log on to my system. And again, it's that example of, it's exciting, it's brilliant, it's so great, but we've got to work with people. We've got to do it in a way that's practical and usable.
Yeah, and I think as well, it doesn't matter how flashy it is, but if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Exactly. And what it could do is brilliant, but if it doesn't do it day to day.
And going back to the log on thing, I don't know how many times like I've been on something, like you've been online shopping or something, and you can't remember your password, and then it's kicking you out, and you're going through. Yeah, it is a nightmare.
And it just ruins it then, and then you don't use it and you don't adopt it.
Yeah.
So, maybe that's it. Maybe that's my final thing, like help people remember the passwords, and then we can start to do cool
single
stuff.
sign-on.
Yeah, single sign-on, yeah.
Thanks for joining us this week, Rhian, and thanks to all of you for listening at home. Join us next time for another episode, and don't forget to rate and subscribe. And if you have any questions for us or our guests, please email whatthehealthtech@radarhealthcare.com.